Good morning, this is Jeff Rock here at the National Weather Service office in Wakefield, and we'll be walking through the briefing here covering the upcoming winter storm and also shift gears and talk a little bit about the marine conditions expected this week. The opening slide here, the graphic really shows you kind of a combination of the snowfall forecast, but then really how it's going to impact the region. And the main thing you'll notice is a red showing up on the map, which is fairly uncommon for our region, showing major winter storm impacts across a lot of Hampton roads up through Isle of Wight, up here through Surrey, even up near Williamsburg, then over here towards Gloucester, Matthews, and parts of the eastern shore where you have this little bit of a red bullseye. And it's starting to bleed south a little bit into North Carolina and could extend a little bit further closer to Elizabeth City with later updates. You also notice a lot of the areas in orange suggesting moderate travel impacts, so some pretty significant impacts to travel really across the entire region with this winter storm. So we'll get right into it and start looking at the exact snow totals here in a second. One thing I kind of want to give folks an appreciation for is just what kind of storm system this is. Right now, we are clear. We just have a little bit of northwest wind bringing in some cooler air, but no weather as of right now. Later on this evening will be continued dry, but you do start to see the storm system starting to drop down into the Four Corners region as you get that dip in the jet stream, and it's going to eventually be swinging across the Midwest and into the Mid-Atlantic. And in fact, by the time you get into tomorrow, getting into later tonight, tomorrow, you see the storm system kind of coming across parts of the Midwest, the central part of the country. By the time you get into tomorrow morning, you're starting to see maybe areas of low pressure here near Texas as the storm system drops into Oklahoma. Continue to move on. This gets us into Tuesday evening. Systems coming across parts of Arkansas. Low pressure systems starting to develop here in the Gulf of near New Orleans. And then by the time you get into Wednesday morning right here, you start to see this area of low pressure here near New Orleans, but then there's also an area of low pressure that's actually forming near Jacksonville, Florida. And this is the one that's going to become dominant. This is going to become our nor'easter that's going to run up the coast, and it's going to track right off of Cape Hatteras here by Thursday morning. So as this low pressure system forms off of Florida and then moves northeast along the Carolina coast, it's going to be pushing a lot of moisture back into our region, into the Mid-Atlantic. And so that moisture is going to collide with the cold air and bring us some potential very heavy snowfall. Now, where this storm system tracks will determine who gets the heaviest snow. So a track a little bit further to the west than this could push the heavy snow back up towards central Virginia, maybe from Wakefield to Richmond. Storm track maybe right here or a little bit to the east will cause the snowfall to actually drop further south into parts of Hampton Roads, the eastern shore, and eastern North Carolina. So we have to nail down within about a 75-mile area where this storm system is going to track. And as it comes up here, it does look like it's going to be intensifying. And as it intensifies, that should allow it to throw more moisture back at us. So the track of this system and the timing that it intensifies will really drive our snowfall forecast moving forward. By the time you do get into Friday, the storm system is long gone. Cold high pressure is building in, so it's going to be very cold behind the system as this pressure system, high pressure, drops out of Canada and then moves into our region, bringing us sunny skies, but also clear temperatures for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So right into the snowfall forecast. This will change. This is still a ways out, and we're still trying to fine-tune this. This is kind of our best guess snow totals right now, kind of showing a widespread 6 to 8 inches of snow potential across the eastern shore. A lot of our Bay counties, maybe far back inland as Petersburg and down to Franklin. And right now the trend is for these snow totals to actually start shifting to the south. So we do think this 6 to 8 snow total is going to start to push its way further south to Ahoskie, down here to Elizabeth City, and maybe even all the way down to the Albemarle Sound. So this area in yellow here, even though it looks like it kind of cuts off here, it doesn't extend very far down into North Carolina, the trend is to move this heavier snowfall further south. So we'll keep an eye on that. You also do notice a pretty hefty bullseye here of 8 to 12 inches of snow right across Hampton Roads. And the models have been trending that way, showing the heavier snow totals, over southeast Virginia. Exactly how big that bullseye is, still yet to be determined, but you're seeing some pretty high numbers here. The other area I think we're a little bit uncertain about is going to be north and west of Richmond. So over here, back here towards Louisa, maybe up here towards Caroline County, even up towards Cambridge, these snow totals may actually end up going down. So as the system maybe slides south, we may see a decrease in the forecast snow totals on the very, very north end of the map. So we'll see how that plays out. The verdict is still out right now, but the trend has been to shift everything to the south. This is our worst case scenario, and the main thing here is you just see some big totals, 12 to maybe 14 inches of snow. The trend has been for this to shift south this morning, so that basically what that means is I think you're going to see the worst case scenario maybe of 8 inches of snow extending all the way down here to the Albemarle Sound, and this 12 inches to 14 inches dropping south, covering a lot more of southeast Virginia as everything looks like it is shifting a little bit to the south. What I want to show here is kind of the latest trend in some of the guidance here. So this is from this morning model run and statistical analysis. So what this is showing you is kind of the middle of the road guess for snowfall. And you do see a pretty good swath here, potentially 8 to 10 inches of snow right here across parts of Hampton Roads, maybe upwards of a foot. And then notice how it extends way down into Elizabeth City. Even back here towards Edenton, looking at possibly maybe 7 to 8 inches of snow. So things have shifted a little bit to the south, and that extends back towards Ahoskie and even almost all the way back here to Roanoke Rapids, where it's showing maybe 6 to 7 inches of snow. You do notice the snow gradient is on the north side of this system, so the further north and west you go from Richmond, the snow totals do decrease. So Richmond could still see, maybe 3 to 4 inches of snow, depending on where you are here around Richmond. But as you go further north up 95 or west out 64, that's kind of where the edge of the snowfall is going to be. Same thing up here in Maryland. Cambridge may not see as much snow as, say, Ocean City. There could be a big difference here. And by the time you get down to Wallops Island, there could be a lot of snow. So this time the gradient for us is on the north side of the system and trying to figure out where this bullseye is going to be and where is the back edge of the snow going to be. That's all going to be dependent upon the storm track. If I increase the totals here or increase into more of a worst case scenario, you do notice that bullseye grows across southeast Virginia, pushing over 12 inches of snow, maybe 12 to 14 inches. Also notice that worst case snow really goes all the way down to the Albemarle Sound. So, our friends down here in North Carolina really pay attention to the forecast, because the forecast could change the most for our friends, south of Hampton Roads and over northeast North Carolina. Same thing for our friends north and west of Richmond and up over parts of the Maryland Eastern Shore. Keep an eye on the forecast, because the forecast for you all may change the most. So just watch how this trends. Snow totals could drop, and then we may end up having to re-increase the snow totals depending on where you are if it looks like the storm track changes. So this is all going to be dependent upon the storm track. And remember, that storm isn't actually even going to form until really, late Wednesday night, getting into Wednesday night, the storm is going to form and then come up the coast. So, we'll kind of see here very last minute exactly what's going to happen. And in fact, when you zoom out and you look at the bigger picture here, the bullseye really is only southeast Virginia, North Carolina, and the Eastern Shore. So the storm system is going to come up the coast. It's going to develop along the coast, intensify, and it's really just hitting us. It's not hitting, as far as the big snow, it's not widespread because it's coming up the coast and it's just hitting here. And so, we'll be able to fine tune this once we see the whites of its eyes. Kind of getting into some of the probabilities, these are all going to change. The main thing I want to emphasize is the fact there's a pretty broad area here where we have high confidence in 6 inches of snow, and this is actually going to extend all the way down to the Albemarle Sound. I think with the later updates, you're going to see a lot of this orange with high confidence, or at least medium confidence of 6 inches of snow going all the way down to the Albemarle Sound. And I think you're going to start to see it decreasing north of Richmond, and maybe here over Cambridge you might see that probability of 6 inches of snow starting to decrease with later forecast. Same thing here with the 8 inches of snow. I think you're going to see the probabilities extending all the way back down to the Albemarle Sound, and everything shifting south, really kind of blanketing all of Hampton Roads with a good confidence of 8 inches of snow, maybe even all the way down to Elizabeth City. Now, we did have some potential freezing rain in the forecast earlier, but I think now with the southern trend in the models. It looks like it's going to be mostly all snow. There could be a little bit of a wintry mix there where the snow mixes with a little bit of sleet over northeast North Carolina and maybe far southeast Virginia. It probably won't last long, but we could see a little bit of a snow sleet mix there. If that happens, it's probably going to be sometime early Thursday morning, and then it will change back over to snow before it ends. So we're not expecting as much freezing rain now with this event, which is actually some good news. Looks like it's all going to be snow and maybe some heavy snow. When the snow comes up, it's going to start out fairly dry here on the right Wednesday morning and early afternoon because it's going to be cold. So a fairly dry snow. It will get a little bit wetter and heavier over especially northeast North Carolina as the system gets closer to us. The low pressure system moves up the coast. The snow character might go from those small fine flakes to those bigger fat wet flakes that have a higher water content in them. So it gets a little bit stickier. And that's probably going to be mainly over far southeast Virginia and northeast North Carolina where we might see some of that maybe a little bit wetter snow. I do think for most of us, I would say even from Norfolk North, Hampton North, the snow might stay a little bit drier, more of that allow it to blow around a little bit easier there with the snow. It's just colder, and so you get that drier snowfall. And then we'll see how that plays out, but that's really going to be Wednesday night and into early Thursday morning. Now, as far as timing of this, so there is still some model differences on how fast this storm system moves in, but generally, for most of us across the region, that purple, for anywhere from 10 a.m. to about 2 p.m. I think by 2 o'clock it should be snowing everywhere. We should see light snow in most places by 10 a.m. even. Further up to Eastern Shore, Accomack north to Maryland, it might take it till about 1 o'clock before it moves into those areas, but it's going to be coming in from the south and the west. As far as when the snow is going to end, and it should end in the I-95 corridor, probably by about 6 a.m. I'd say it starts tapering off in the I-95 corridor pretty good. Areas in the east and the red, the snow could last till about 9 a.m. on Thursday, maybe even a little bit later. It just depends upon how fast the system pulls off the coast. But it's going to be a little bit later on Thursday, at least until about 9 a.m. And what I can do is kind of step you through a little bit of a simulated radar here. Should do a pretty good job showing us how the system might play out. And so, 4 a.m. Wednesday, there's really not any snow anywhere. All the bright blues are way to the west over Kentucky, maybe some rain here north of Wilmington. And kind of stepping it through time, 7 a.m., most of anything's going to be way back here towards the mountains, maybe some rain way to the south. But then by the time you get to 10 a.m., you are starting to see a lot more blue starting to show up across the entire region. So might start to see a little bit of light snow moving in from the south and from the west by about 10 a.m. on Wednesday. But notice the brighter blues are still further to the west here, back over the mountains. Now you get to 1 o'clock and things do start to change a bit. You start to see these brighter blues showing up. So that means the snowfall intensity should be starting to increase. And it does look like we'll see snow just, at least I'd say 64 south by about 1 o'clock on Wednesday. Notice the eastern shore is not really, it may be some light snow, but it hasn't really gotten too heavy, especially Maryland. Probably not going to see much snow this early. Maybe even up here on the northern neck, maybe some light snow. In Fredericksburg North, maybe some light snow at 1 o'clock, but it hasn't really moved in yet. Getting into about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and snow is now pretty much everywhere by 4 o'clock Wednesday afternoon. A lot of bright blue here across a lot of the region from Richmond south and east, so that suggests we may have some pretty good snowfall rates by by Wednesday afternoon. So just be aware of that. That this is coming in, after lunchtime. So, folks that go to work there, that are actually in their offices and things like that, the snows may start really coming down pretty heavy before rush hour, so something to really keep in mind. And we will have accumulations ongoing pretty good by 4 p.m. in the afternoon on Wednesday. This is 7 p.m. Again, now the snow is still kind of locked in across the entire region, nice and bright blue. Even here on northeast North Carolina, notice how it's all the way down to the Albemarle Sound. So snow really everywhere. This is 10 p.m. Wednesday night, moving into 1 a.m. Still getting some pretty good snow. Maybe that wintry mix pushing in towards Currituck and up towards Corolla. Maybe a wintry mix even in Edenton and Elizabeth City here. You kind of see that warm air just to the southeast. So that's when we might mix a little bit with sleet. But it looks like most of Hampton roads might stay mostly snow. And maybe some pretty good snow rates here in the brighter blue here at 1 a.m. on Thursday morning. 4 a.m., we're still starting to see the snow here hanging on in the east. Maybe it does start to let up here, especially north and west of Richmond. The snow may be starting to decrease by 4 a.m. on Thursday. We're moving into about 7 a.m. Snow is definitely, I think, decreasing across the inland parts of Virginia, but it's still hanging on here across the Hampton Roads, northeast North Carolina, and even parts of the eastern shore, still in that bright blue. So I think the snow is still hanging on. Some pretty good snow rates, 7 a.m. on Thursday. It does start to pull out by 10, and I think by the time we get to 1 o'clock, most of the heavier snow is going to be offshore, and anything we have here at this point, just maybe a few little lingering little light snow there by Thursday afternoon. Nothing very significant. So this kind of just shows you the timing. I think you're going to see a lot more snowflakes on the map here with later updates where we're not going to see as much of a wintry mix. I think we're expecting a lot more snow now in places like Elizabeth City, like Edenton, like Corolla. I think you're going to see a lot more blue snowflakes here with later forecasts and less mix of snow, sleet, and freezing rain. It's going to be more all snow. One thing I do want to emphasize is that if you notice this, this is the wind forecast across the entire region. And the main thing is you do see those winds increasing Wednesday afternoon and especially through Wednesday night here and early Thursday morning. So what this means is that when we have a lot of heavy snow falling, especially let's say 4 o'clock Wednesday until about, let's say 6 a.m. on Thursday, this window, this sweet spot here, it's going to be breezy. We're going to have a northeast wind along the bay and the coast here of about anywhere from 20 to 30 miles per hour, even getting up to 35 miles per hour in some locations. So just be aware of that. It's going to be windy. We're going to have some heavy snowfall, maybe some near whiteout conditions, especially along the eastern shore, our bay counties, Hampton Roads, northeast North Carolina. Wednesday night, early Thursday morning could be fairly dangerous when it comes to heavy snowfall, wind, and no visibility. So just be aware of that. Even once the snow stops, let's say the snow tapers off by about 9 a.m. or so, and by noon the snow should really be ending. But notice how it's still windy. So, areas especially along the bay, near the coast, Hampton Roads, northeast North Carolina, we may have real issues with blowing snow, especially across the eastern shore and Hampton Roads, where the snow maybe stay drier longer. We may have blowing snow that's blowing across the road and moving around here. If we do see that 6 to 8, 10, 12 inches of snow and it's windy and it's going to be windy like this, definitely expect that to be a problem. The winds really don't start to decrease for our coastal areas along the bay and the coast really until after, I'd say, Friday afternoon. Friday afternoon, the wind starts to come down, but you see we maintain some pretty good winds here near the coast and along the bay, even here in Norfolk, even all the way till about noon on Friday. Same thing is true for Ocean City. We keep that wind up till about noon on Friday, so going to be breezy. Temperatures, Wednesday morning, before the snow comes in, we're pretty much going to be in the low 20s, low to mid 20s everywhere. So nice and cold. Ground's going to be frozen before the snow gets here. The high temperature on Wednesday is going to really struggle into the upper 20s to maybe right around low 30s. So we should be able to see some pretty efficient accumulations with those temperatures. When you start talking about Thursday night after the snow ends, we're going to be clear. Skies are going to clear, and we're dropping down into the low 20s, low to mid 20s. So very, very cold. Things are going to want to refreeze and kind of maybe ice up a little bit. On Thursday, we actually see the temperatures getting here into the about maybe 30 to 33. So overnight during the snow. On Thursday, it's going to actually, Thursday morning, it's still going to be snowing, so I apologize for that. It's going to be snowing, and we're going to be in the low to mid 20s. For Thursday, as the snow is tapering off Thursday around, I'd say noonish or so, temperatures still only get up to maybe 32 to 33 degrees. So don't expect any melting. Even once the snow ends, we're not going to have any melting on Thursday at all. Snow is going to be hanging around. Thursday night, early Friday morning, that's what I was trying to talk about earlier. Skies are going to clear by the time we get through Thursday night, Friday morning, but look at these temperatures. Pretty much solidly in the teens and 20s. So very, very cold Friday morning, so things are going to stay iced up. On Friday, the high temperatures, maybe we get up into the mid-30s. It is going to be sunny, so that's going to be the good news, but it's not very warm. So a lot of that snow is not going to melt a whole lot on Friday, especially in areas of heavy snow. By the time we get into Friday night, Saturday morning, again, a lot of temperatures in the teens and in the 20s, even at the coast. So going to be very, very cold. On Saturday, continued mostly sunny and temperatures get a little bit warmer, upper 30s to low 40s. And that trend continues into the weekend with some warmer temperatures, but still very cold at night where things refreeze. And that's going to continue even into Monday morning. So we'll have to watch that and see how things trend over the weekend. Now I'm going to jump ahead way here to the marine side of the house. As far as the potential for gale conditions, we did have gales earlier this morning. The gales have ended. There is a good probability that we're going to get back into gales later on this week with this low pressure system as it slides up along the coast. And in fact, the areas in orange represent small craft advisory conditions, but red represents gales. And you'll notice here Wednesday, late Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night, the red starts to show up here in the lower bay and here along the coast where we're going to start setting up some gale conditions. And you see a lot of red here for Thursday where we do expect those gale conditions to persist into Thursday. And even though we may have gale conditions Friday morning, things should be improving on Friday. So you don't see as much red here on the map for Friday. So we're going to be looking out for those potential gale conditions Wednesday night and probably through Thursday and maybe lingering a little bit into Friday morning. So this is what our peak winds look like, at least taking us through 7 p.m. Thursday. Kind of seeing those winds picking up to about maybe 35 knots on the bay. That's a northeast wind, and getting up maybe a 35 to 40 knots out here on the ocean side. So getting into those gale conditions with those northeast winds. Kind of breaking it down, you see the gales this morning that actually have now expired. Winds have decreased. Tuesday looks pretty good with a northwest wind, maybe small craft advisory conditions. But again, those winds pick up after about 6 p.m. On Wednesday. Those winds start to increase. And by the time you get here into midnight and you get into Thursday, get very close into gale conditions. It's not high-end gales, but it looks like we'll be right close to those gale conditions there Thursday and maybe early Friday morning before the northwest winds start to decrease back down to small craft advisory conditions. And then the winds continue to decrease Saturday and into Sunday. That's all I had, and our next briefing will be sent out via email at 5 p.m.